tonight's news edition. The Prime Minister tells local governors the government is open for solutions to the tough economic and financial situation.
"28 Syrian army soldiers and 5 rebels are killed, and China proposes a new ceasefire."
And as American states worst hit by Superstorm Sandy struggle to recover, latest estimates put economic losses at $50 billion. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10.
Good evening.
Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour met Interior Ministry governors, launching a national dialogue with all civil society institutions on how best to approach the kingdom's tough economic and financial situation. He told the governors at the meeting attended by Deputy Premier and Interior Minister Awad Khalifat and other cabinet ministers that the government is open to all opinions on solutions and finding an exit from the difficult economic conditions and a heavily burdened state budget. Mansour said citizens should be kept posted on the reality of the economy, adding the government will not take the public off guard by any decisions and assured that matters will be clear for all. He said no decision had yet been made on lifting a subsidy on some basic commodities, but assured that the right decision will be made that will not affect low and middle income groups. He said the government is currently thinking of changing the subsidy to ensure it benefits the targeted groups only through direct cash payments. He said the biggest part of the current subsidy goes to the rich and non-Jordanians. Mansour told the governors that the budget deficit could swell to 2.5 billion dinars at year's end if aid did not come from Arab countries. He said the growing deficit was due to rising oil prices and a cut in Egyptian gas supplies to the kingdom. The Prime Minister also said the public debt had exceeded secure limits and might reach about 75% of gross domestic product by the end of the year. On upcoming parliamentary elections, Mansour pledged support for the newly established Independent Elections Commission, but would not interfere with its work. He reiterated the polls should be fair and would hit hard at any irregularities. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour said his government is keen to keep channels of dialogue open with all segments of society, political forces, and community leaders. He said in a meeting with former Prime Minister Fayez al-Tarawne that his cabinet will be tuned to all views on Jordan's comprehensive reform drive. Mansour told his predecessor that his team will work to build on achievements by previous governments in various fields. Tarawne wished the Prime Minister and his ministers success in implementing the contents of the Royal Letter of Designation.
A cabinet decision requesting that His Majesty the King a special pardon for a group of detainees excludes one of the convicts, Mohammed Isa Damas. State Minister of Media Affairs and Communication and Culture Minister Samih Maaita said the amnesty endorsed at the weekly cabinet session yesterday applies to just 5 members of the group.
Jordan strongly condemned an Israeli plan to build a military academy on Mount Olive in occupied East Jerusalem. State Minister for Media Affairs and Communications and official government spokesperson Samih Maaita said Mount Olive is part of Palestinian lands occupied in 1967. He said Mount Olive is recognized as occupied territory by the United Nations and international law, and that the 1949 Fourth Geneva Convention also applies to it. The minister warned that such settlement activity would undermine the already faltering peace efforts and the two-state solution. He urged the international community to intercede with Israel to stop all forms of settlement activity and unilateral measures. Rebels killed 28 Syrian army soldiers in an attack on 3 checkpoints around the town of Saraqib, which straddles the country's main north-south highway. 5 rebels were also killed in the attack, 2 of which were on the highway linking the capital of Damascus to Aleppo, Syria's most populous city. Meanwhile, China has proposed a phased ceasefire in Syria. Zain Abu Sufeh reports on the latest violence.
Anti-government rebels killed 28 soldiers in attacks on 3 army checkpoints around Saraqib, a town on Syria's main north-south highway. The highway linking the capital Damascus to Aleppo, Syria's commercial center, has been the scene of heavy fighting since rebels cut the road last month. In the capital, at least 6 people were killed and 15 others wounded when an explosive device went off last night in front of a Shiite-held shrine in Al Sayyida Zainab suburb of Damascus. Women and children were among the dead amid scenes of destruction and debris left in the residential area. An explosive device ripped through Damascus's Gaza district near a mosque with 1 civilian killed. Amateur video showed Syrian army shelling and helicopter attacks on the eastern outskirts of the capital. On the Turkish border, rebel groups continued to battle for the town of Haram as gunfire was heard from the side of the border. The battle has been fierce for the town, whose residents are mostly government loyalists and have been surrounded and besieged by rebels for 2 weeks. In the latest diplomacy, China put forward a new 4-point plan to push a political solution to the Syria crisis. Foreign Minister Yang Jiechi has put a ceasefire proposal to UN Arab League peace envoy for Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi. The new plan includes a phase-by-phase and region-by-region ceasefire and establishing of a transitional governing body in the country. The Syrian conflict is entering its 20th month and has caused the deaths of at least 32,000 people. Zain Abu Sufa for the news at 10.
At least 22 people were killed when a fuel tank crashed into a flyover in the Saudi capital, Riyadh. Ambulances rushed in the scene of the crash, triggered an explosion that brought down an industrial building and torched nearby vehicles. Health Ministry spokesman Saad Al-Qahtani said 135 people were injured in the disaster, mostly men. The Civil Defense Minister department said a gas tanker had hit a bridge in the eastern Riyadh, gas leak, and an explosion in a nearby heavy machinery and vehicle warehouse. The Civil Defense Chief said the fire had been brought under control. He blamed the tanker driver for the accident. Although the incident took place near the headquarters of the Saudi Arabian National Guard, Naif Arab College for Security Science, officials said it was an accident.
Had the tragic incident that has happened with many actually injuries that has occurred in Riyadh because of exploded gas tank that has overlapped in the highway, and they have been distributed to 11 hospitals and have been directed by the custodian to holy mosques and the Crown Prince to convey our sympathy to them and also hoping that they will soon.
French President François Hollande called on Israelis and Palestinians to resume peace negotiations without preconditions. During a press conference in Paris with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Hollande said negotiations are the only way to work out a final solution to the conflict. Netanyahu expressed his willingness to resume negotiations without delay, accusing the Palestinians of responsibility for the current stalemate. The Palestinian Authority said it does not put any condition to return to the negotiating table. Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Ariqat said the Israeli Premier and the French President are aware that stopping settlement activities is not a condition, but an Israeli commitment to maintain the two-state solution.
Royal Jordanian resumed its operation between Amman and New York after John F. Kennedy International Airport reopened. The national carrier currently operates 4 regular flights between a week between Amman and New York, with the 5th in summer. As wars hit American states are struggling to recover from a superstorm Sandy, the latest estimates have put damage at $20 billion in injured losses and $50 billion in economic losses. The number of deaths climbed at least 82, with many still unaccounted for. Laishan Qiti reports on the aftermath.
New Yorkers awoke to the rumble of subway trains for the first time in 4 days, in a sign of recovery from Hurricane Sandy's devastating blow. But in the storm-stricken U.S. Northeast, gasoline shortages persisted and emergency teams struggled to reach the worst-hit areas and restore power to millions of people. At least 82 people in North America died in the superstorm, which rampaged through the U.S. Northeast. Officials said the count could still rise as rescuers searched to house through coastal towns. President Barack Obama viewed flooded and sand-swept neighborhoods of New Jersey on a helicopter tour of the state.
So we're going to have a lot of work to do. I don't want anybody to feel that somehow this is all going to get cleaned up overnight. We want to make sure that people have realistic expectations. But what I can promise you is that the federal government will be working as closely as possible with the state and local officials, and we will not quit until this is done.
In New York, limited train service returned to some train and subway lines, but more than gas stations in the city and neighboring New Jersey remained shut due to power outages and depleted fuel supplies. Even before dawn, long lines formed at gas stations but were expected to open. Towns along the New Jersey shore took much of the brunt. Homes were flooded, boardwalks washed away, and gas captured. The extent of destruction in the New York City borough of Staten Island became clearer when whole houses were picked up off their foundations. In Jersey City, across the Hudson River, from New York, drivers negotiated intersections without the aid of traffic lights. Shops were shuttered and lines formed outside pharmacies, while people piled sodden mattresses and furniture along the side of the roads. The city has issued a curfew on people and businesses, as well as driving ban from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. LaGuardia Airport in New York was scheduled to reopen with limited service. John F. Kennedy and Newark, New Jersey, reopened with limited services as of yesterday. Sandy is likely to rank as one of the costliest storms in U.S. history. About 6 million homes and businesses in 15 U.S. states are without power, down from a high of nearly 8.5 million, which surpassed the record 8.1 million customers who went dark last year's Hurricane Irene. Laysan Qiti for the News at 10.
After 3 days focusing on Superstorm Sandy, President Barack Obama returned to the campaign trail. He's back with more affirmative messages to win over undecided voters in the final days of the race for the White House. With polls showing a tight contest between the Democratic incumbent and Republican challenger Mitt Romney before Tuesday's election, Obama will use trips to political battleground states to make a closing appeal for a second term. Hala Dababne has more.
The clock is ticking for November 6th U.S. elections. In this final week of what has become a deadlocked race for the White House, one thing is clear. Both candidates are spending billions on TV ads, more than ever before.
You've seen months of campaigning, way too many TV ads. I know you guys are sick of the ads.
Even though the president and Republican challenger Mitt Romney have slowed their campaigning in the wake of Hurricane Sandy, spending on TV ads has never been stronger. Much of that money is coming from political action committees, which have no fundraising limits. Ohio is being inundated with such dueling ads in the final days before Election Day, as Obama and Romney both look to the state's 18 electoral votes as a crucial step towards the 270 electoral votes needed to win the White House. The U.S. president and the Republican challenger have blanketed the state, both sides' view, as key to the White House.
My view is that this president should have honored his promise to do as he said. Now, let me mention one other thing, and that is self-deportation says let people make their own choice. What I was saying is we're not going to round up 12 million people, undocumented, illegals, and take them out of the nation.
The Obama and Romney campaigns have spent tens of millions of dollars to persuade Latino voters. Spanish-language advertising has blanked television, radio, and other media in the battleground swing states. Although Latinos are the fastest growing segment of the American electorate, with 22 million Latinos eligible to vote this November, they are also less likely to exercise that right. Latinos, like most Americans, are frustrated with the state of the U.S. economy under the Obama administration. Still, they are sticking with the president. Hala Dababne for the News at 10.
Andy Murray wasted the match point before being knocked out of the Paris Masters 5-7 and 6-6-2 by Polish qualifier Jerzy Janowicz in the third round. The US Open and Olympic champion lost focus as he served for the match in the second set, and was then battered by the hard-hitting Janovic, who ended the contest with a forehand winner, then collapsed with joy. World number 3's defeat means that for the first time since 2010, Paris event was won by Sweden Robin Söderling. A master title will be claimed by a player outside the Big Four. Novak Djokovic was knocked out of the tournament by Sam Querrey in the second round, while Roger Federer and Nadal both opted not to play with the French capital. Fighting erupted several times at the ice hockey match in Slovakia, and both goalkeepers were sent off after staging their own boxing tournament in the middle of the ice. Banska Beriska were at the top Poprad Tuesday, a game full of incident with goalie Robert Slipchenko was hit on the mask and dropped out the ground, prompting players to attack each other again. Slipchenko quickly recovered, and Poprad goalkeepers Dusan Sidor ended up throwing punches as others watched. Just to add to a fun, a spectator threw a soccer ball into the ice. Both keepers were sent off, and Poprad won 4-3.
Finally, a look at the weather. A relatively cold night with clouds building up and a chance for light showers. Tomorrow it will be warm in most areas with medium to high clouds and possible scattered showers, especially in eastern Jordan. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a pleasant night and a relatively hot day tomorrow with light winds picking up at times and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. The Prime Minister tells local governors the government is open to solutions to the tough economic and financial situation. "28 Syrian army soldiers and 5 rebels are killed, and China proposes a new ceasefire." And as American states worst hit by Superstorm Sandy struggle to recover, latest estimates put economic losses at $50 billion. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair.
And I'm Farah Ajlouni.
Thank you for watching and have a good night.
Have a good night.